I miss the days where the weekend used to be relaxing. I miss the days when there was no real breaking news that happened over the weekend, and that Mondays were just kind of, mundane. But that is not the world that we live in anymore. That is not the world that Trumpism has created. And so we find ourselves here. And I'm so glad that you folks, my lovely damnation, are here with me. Folks, it's been a busy weekend and it's going to be a full week, even though it's a holiday. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show. We start today with reflecting on 5 years. 5 years since the murder of George Floyd. 5 years since Derek Chauvin placed his knee on George Floyd's neck for over 9 minutes as crowds grew around them, as other police officers held him down, as he cried out for his dead mother. George Floyd was murdered in broad daylight by Derek Chauvin, a man that right now, MAGA, led by Elon Musk and Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, are trying to get Donald Trump to pardon, because there is nothing that makes a hero on the right than a murderer of an innocent Black person. My issue with the murder of George Floyd has always been that in America, Black Americans have to be perfect. Yeah, George Floyd may have had a drug addiction. George Floyd may have done some unseemly things, as guess what? A lot of fucking people in this country have. That doesn't make you worthy of murder in broad daylight, suffocating, excruciating murder, a slow death for over 9 minutes. But what mainstream white corporate media has always done is that they have always made it a binary. Well, if they were not of the model of Martin Luther King Jr., then those Black people, they deserve to die. Whether they were a child playing in the park like Tamir Rice, whether they were a child walking home from a convenience store like Trayvon Martin, whether they were out on a jog like Ahmaud Arbery, whether they were sleeping in bed like Breonna Taylor, whether they were driving on their way to a new job and a new life like Sandra Bland. The list goes on and on and on of Black lives that were interrupted by white violence. Black lives that became hashtags, not because those people were angelic in their lives, but because at the times of their murders, they were living mundane lives, going about their business while being Black. And that was just a little too much. As Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett wrote on social media, George Floyd should be alive today. He should be raising his daughter, living his life. 5 years later, we owe him more than thoughts and hashtags. His daughter said, "My daddy changed the world." Let's stop failing her. Let's stop failing him. Congress must pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. George Floyd was a father. He was a friend. He was a son. He was a man that deserved to live his life any way that he chose. He didn't need to be perfect in order to not be murdered in cold blood. He didn't need to be perfect as a way to just decide that he deserved to live or die, or deserves to be remembered. Black people have their lives, like I say, interrupted every day by white domestic terror. Whether it be the Karen in the park that is calling the police on Black people bird watching or having a barbecue or playing music and showing a little bit too much joy. Whether it's the police officer pulling them over for no reason other than to make a racist quota. Whether it's a white vigilante who doesn't like their presence at all. Our lives, Black lives, are constantly interrupted by white violence. And yet, the story that mainstream corporate America will tell you is that somehow it's always our fault. Maybe Breonna Taylor should have never fallen asleep in her own bed. Maybe Tamir Rice should have never been playing on the playground. Maybe Trayvon Martin should have ordered in rather than walk to the store. Maybe Ahmaud Arbery should have taken up another sport rather than jogging. Somehow, our deaths, our murders, our murders are always our fault and always deserving in the eyes of white domestic terrorists. Speaking of which, Donald Trump isn't doing away with all of civil rights policies. He's not rolling back the entire 20th century and 21st century. No, no. He's just reorganizing who civil rights is meant to help. So, in 5 years since George Floyd was murdered, what has changed? Well, Donald Trump has been reelected and he is reimagining America through a white supremacist lens. And what does that look like, dear friends? It looks like this. For Trump, civil rights protections should help white men. Written by Erica L. Green in the New York Times. Administration officials pick and choose which civil rights protections they want to enforce and for whom. She writes this. In his drive to purge diversity efforts in the federal government and beyond, Trump has expressed outright hostility to civil rights protections. He ordered federal agencies to abandon some of the core tenets of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 on the basis that they represented a, quote, pernicious, which I'm sure he doesn't know what that word means, attempt to make decisions based on diversity rather than merit. But in recent weeks, Trump has turned to those same measures not to help groups that have historically been discriminated against, but to remedy what he sees as the disenfranchisement of white men. The pattern fits into a broader trend in the administration as Trump officials pick and choose which civil rights protections they want to enforce and for whom. Across the government, agencies that have historically worked to fight discrimination against Black people, women, and other groups have pivoted to investigating institutions accused of favoring them. On Monday, today, the administration said it had opened a civil rights investigation into the city of Chicago to see if its mayors or others had engaged in a pattern of discrimination by hiring a number of Black people to senior positions. The investigation came after Chicago's mayor, Brandon Johnson, praised the number of Black people in top city jobs during remarks at a local church. Speaking to congregants, Mr. Johnson said that some of his detractors had claimed he only ever talks about the hiring of Black people. This comes from a fucking administration that put a guy who was on road rules and head of the Department of Transportation, put a man who only ever talked about the Pentagon in charge of our defense, put a dog killer in charge of Homeland Security, put a WWE co-founder in charge of education, put a Qatari consultant ahead of our Justice Department. Where are the merits that he speaks of? Where are the merits that any of these people have other than bending over to kiss the feet and the ring of Donald Trump? Where are their accolades? They have none. And you see, what gets people who are so small and stupid and racist angry are Black people and people of color having more accolades than them. Because in their minds, white people are the only ones that should ever ascend, even if they don't work for it, even if they don't have the smarts for it, even if they show and celebrate their ignorance. So Donald Trump wants to talk about merits. And hey, if I'm in the White House press corps, I'm going to ask, where are the qualifications of the people that you have lifted up to the highest positions in this country? What makes them qualified to do their jobs other than the fact that they just flatter you with bullshit? I mean, Amy Coney Barrett has her job as a Supreme Court justice not because she has a long resume in the courts or on any benches whatsoever, but because she wrote a paper that Donald Trump liked, and then he promoted her. These people wouldn't know merit if it slapped them across their stupid faces. And yet it's all that they flap their gums about. The fact is that what has changed since George Floyd was murdered in broad daylight while all of us watched it streamed is that white domestic terror has taken center stage again. That white grievance has been accommodated and centralized. And that the rest of us have been told to go and find our places, which are somewhere in the back. And you can look no further than another New York Times piece that is up. How Donald Trump has remade America's political landscape. Donald Trump's victory in 2024 was not an outlier. It was the culmination of continuous gains by Republicans in much of the country each time he has run for president. A sea of red that amounts to flashing warning sign for a Democratic Party out of power and hoping for a comeback. The steady march to the right at the county level reveals not just the extent of the nation's transformation in the Trump era, but also the degree to which the United States now resembles two countries charging in two opposite directions. These are the things that I have been talking about ad nauseum for a decade now. These are the flags that Democrats have chosen not to pay attention to. You see, in 2016, it was that Donald Trump was an anomaly. In 2020, COVID happened and 1 million people were killed because that motherfucker told them to inject bleach into their arms and not to cover their mouths and nose with a mask and instead to liberate states. And it was hard to sell a lie when you were seeing refrigerator trucks in your neighborhood filled with bodies because the morgues were overrun. That's the only reason why Donald Trump lost in 2020, but he still gained ground. The fact is that in 2024, Biden exited the race with only 107 days to go. And while he had hid his vice president from the American people, she had only 107 days to not only reintroduce herself, but to ignite them to a potential other story that America could tell about itself. Donald Trump had 10 years to allow Trumpism and white grievance to take hold in this country. Vice President Kamala Harris had 107 days to change their mind. Not only was that not a fair matchup, it didn't even make any fucking sense. Nor was the work that was done over the last 4 years of Biden and Harris, none was it done to undo the damage that Donald Trump had done and to ensure that he couldn't take power or anyone like him could take power again, because they had told such a good story about who America was under Donald Trump and how he could destroy it further. But more importantly, what they could do to chart a path for the future. That's the message that is missing. And so when you take a look, friends, at this map, the Democrats' problem run deep nearly everywhere. This is where voters shifted toward Trump in each of the last 3 elections. Look at the red. It isn't just in red states, it's everywhere. And this is where voters shifted toward Democrats. If that doesn't scare the shit out of those that are running the Democratic Party, then I don't know what does. And here is yet another one. Counties that shifted in one direction in each of the last 3 presidential elections. Circle size is proportionate to county population. Look at the map, folks. Look at California. Look at New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania. These were never Republican strongholds, and yet this is where we are right now. On top of which, of the 1,433, quote, triple trending Trump counties, only 3 had a median household income above $100,000. It was the opposite for Democrats. 18 of the 57 triple trending Democratic counties had a median household income above $100,000. Donald Trump is picking up steam with those that are working class. Democrats are only building in small enclaves with people who have college degrees and people who are high earners. And yet the Republican Party are the ones that are slashing the benefits and the policies that will help the working class. So make it make sense. It is about what is being sold to the American people. And Donald Trump, whether we like it or not, is a really good fucking salesman. It shouldn't be so hard to sell freedom to the American people. And yet, what are Democrats doing? Check this shit out. The prospectus for one new $20 million effort obtained by the Times aims to reverse the erosion of Democratic support among young men, especially online. Its code name, SAM, short for Speaking with American Men, a strategic plan, and promises investment to, quote, study the syntax, language, and content that gains attention and virality in these spaces. It recommends buying advertisements in video games, among other things. Andy Kaczynski's reaction, oh my God, yeah, that was mine too when I read the fucking price tag on this. So once again, instead of actually speaking to young men, this Democratic Party will focus group the hell out of them and try and cosplay and mimic what is done on the right to try and do that on the left and say, oh, you mean it's not one size fits all? What Democrats have an issue with, we have an authenticity gap. You see, Republicans have spent the last 2 to 3 decades infiltrating various areas where their key target groups are. White men are their key target groups because they know that white women will just follow along with white men. So they infiltrated the bromosphere in terms of the manosphere and their podcasts, the gaming industry, UFC, WWE, etc. But folks, that was all authentic. They drop a little seeds in. Donald Trump shows some interest in these areas. And then what spawned from this move back to centralize the needs of men? The birth of trad wives, the birth of women who are cute and thin and blonde and on social media making sourdough bread for their man's sandwich because that's what brings them the most joy. They were manufactured. Okay? But they were fed just enough, and then it took hold. The left cannot mimic that. Our demographics, our group structure, our thinking is different. So spending $20 million on Sam speaking with American men, oh my God, is right. On top of which, once again, back in the news, Democratic troubles revive debate over left-wing buzzwords. From, quote, intersectionality to equity, many say jargon is alienating key voters, but progressives say inclusive language is vital. Maybe it's using the word, quote, oligarchs instead of rich people, or referring to people experiencing food insecurity rather than Americans going hungry, or equity in place of equality, or justice involved populations instead of prisoners. As Democrats wrestle with who to be in the era of Trump, a growing group of party members, especially centrists, is reviving the argument that Democrats need to rethink the words they use to talk with the voters who trust they need to regain. Here's my thing, folks. They don't need to grapple with words. They need to grapple with meaning. The fact is that I get annoyed with the words. I get annoyed with cancel culture. I get annoyed with inauthenticity and lack of integrity, which is all rampant inside of the Democratic Party. The fact is that when asked about, oh, is it a pronoun problem that Democrats have? What they should be talking about is dignity and respect. It's not about the he, she, or they. It is about the respect and dignity that we provide to people who do not look like us, love like us, or identify in the way that we do. I said this earlier today on Democracy-ish. If I tell you that my name is Danielle, but you tell me that, oh, you look more like a Michelle, and so that's what I'm going to call you. Does that make sense to you? No, it doesn't. It means that you are totally and completely dismissing me as a person and what I am saying that I want in exchange for what it is you think that I want. That's all this is about, is dignity and respect. And so Democrats find themselves continually off topic and put off with grappling around words when they should be talking about the people that those words represent. It's the people that need not be thrown under the bus. It's the people that need not be marginalized because, oh, it's just too complicated to discuss. Words do matter, but so the fuck does action. And action is something that this Democratic Party is absolutely missing. And finally, they said this. They contend that liberal candidates too often use language from elite, highly educated circles that suggests the speakers consider themselves smart and virtuous while casting implied judgment on those who speak more plainly. Hardly a formula for winning people over, they say. The last debate is, in part, also a proxy for the big old battle over what Democrats' identity should be in the aftermath of November's devastating losses, especially as the party searches for ways to reverse its overwhelming rejection by rural and white working class voters. The fact is that we should have taken a page out of Tim Walz's book instead of trying to focus group his language and make him sound like everybody else by the time that that campaign was rolling to its end. The reason why Tim Walz took hold is because he was a plain-spoken, regular American white male. who could speak the way that people speak. And guess what? He could also talk about progress and change in a way that was inclusive and not exclusive. We need a new story. Democrats need a new narrative, and they're not going to do so by fighting with each other about what words make sense and what doesn't. What matters right now is meaning and authenticity. Two things that Democrats are lacking. That is it for me today, dear friends, on the Danielle Moodie Show. As always, power to the people and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, do stay safe. And if you have yet to subscribe to this channel, my friends, please do subscribe. And if you are looking to support, please do so at the Damn Digest and in other places where you can become a monthly subscriber. Paid subscriber at that. Every dollar goes a long way. I appreciate you, and I'll see you back here tomorrow live. Be well.